Do you like running? Not me. But Professor Jay Sandhouse has been pounding the pavement for over 20 years. And I'm not just saying casual jogs on the weekends. He runs marathons, ultra marathons, and even half marathons. So tell me, Jay, what were you thinking?
That's a really good question because I always hated running. I tried it so many times and it was torturous. I was going to the gym about 4 or 5 times a week, and I would go on the elliptical sometimes for 2 hours. A friend of mine in the gym would come up to me and go, "Bro, you need to enter a race with me." And I went, "No, I don't like running." And he just hocked me every single time I was in the gym. So finally, I gave in, and I entered the Tamarack Turkey Trot with him. That's a 5K race, and that's 3.1 miles. It was tough, but I really, really loved it. So I said to him, "When's the next race?" And he said, "There's a race every weekend. Next weekend is the Jingle Bell Jog, which is in Sunrise." I did that, and then I did a race the weekend after, and the rest was history.
So what I understand is that you were running 10 years before your first marathon. What made you take the plunge?
I enjoyed the longer distances more than the shorter ones, so I did 10Ks if I could. I was working at Miami-Dade College at the time. I was the studio manager, and I ran their network, MDC-TV. We had a guest on one time, and he was the event manager for the Miami Marathon and Half Marathon. So he told me about the race, and he gave me a free entry for the Half Marathon. I trained for it. It went pretty well. Of course, I cramped up about a quarter of a mile before I finished, so I limped across the finish line. And I remember saying, "You know what, I just can't imagine doing another 13.1 miles. But of course, 6 months later, I did my first full marathon.
And how did that go?
Not well, not well. It was the A1A marathon, and I was really prepared. I did a lot of training. I get halfway through the race, and I hit the wall. Just hit the wall, ran out of gas. I tried running, walking, became more walking. I was so disappointed in myself. This one guy was trying to encourage me. Crossed the finish line. It took forever, but I finished. So that was my adventure, my first full marathon.
Yikes. So now in 2010, you did your first ultra marathon. Explain to the audience what an ultra marathon is.
An ultra marathon is anything more than a full marathon. So it's typically people will do a 50-mile run or a 50K, which is 31 miles, and that's what I did. I did it in Brooksville, which is north of Tampa, and it was through a big forest that they have there.
And I'm guessing based on past experiences, it didn't go as well as expected?
Oh, no, it was bad. It was really bad. I didn't hydrate enough, and I got lost.
What do you mean you got lost?
Well, you're running through the forest, so the markers are on the trees, and if you look down for 1 second, you're just dead in the water. And speaking of water, I knew I was lost because I was face-to-face with the canal. So I wound up doing an extra 3 miles. I literally almost fainted 3 times. I cramped up to the point where I couldn't even walk. And Amanda, I'm not trying to be sarcastic here, but there were points where I just didn't think I was going to make it. But I did.
And how long did it take you to recover from that one?
Well, I was supposed to drive home that day, but I was in such bad shape. My friends Pam and Elaine took me back to the hotel. I checked in again, and I laid in bed all night. I just couldn't even move. I drove home the next day. It wasn't the easiest thing in the world. Then I went to my physical therapist, and she said, "You are in really bad shape." She worked me out, but by the end of the week, I was pretty much good to go and just got back on the road again after that.
So I'm guessing there's no more ultras in your future?
That ship has sailed in the night. I thought about it, and I really wanted to redeem myself, but full marathons are good enough, so I stuck with those.
Speaking of marathons, what is your medal count?
As of this moment, I've done 53 half marathons, 17 full marathons, and of course that one ultra marathon.
That's really impressive. Take us through a week of running when there's no marathons.
I usually try and run 3 to 4 times a week. I get up about 4 in the morning, which I know is super early, and no one should be up at that hour. But you want to try and get in as much as you can before the sun comes up, and of course, some of us do work. So I do 3 to 5 miles during the week each time I go out and run. And then on the weekend, I try and do my longer run, and that could be anywhere from, let's say, 9 to 12 miles, again, when I'm not training for a race.
And I'm guessing that increases during race season?
It does. I'm always half marathon trained, so I'm good to go to do a half marathon really at any point, even right now. But when you do a full, you have to do some 22-mile runs, 20-mile runs, 19, 18, 17-mile runs. Honestly, it's like a second job.
And speaking of race season, what is the peak time for runners?
Typically, race season starts around October, November, and then it kind of tapers off in April. It gets a little bit too warm to do those kind of distances unless you're traveling somewhere, maybe up north or to the West Coast or another country or something. But there are 5Ks that just go on year-round. You can always find one of those.
You are such an inspiration. What would you tell me if I began running?
I would tell you that running is something that you typically love or you hate. There's no middle ground. So you have to do everything you can to love it. You want to look forward to the run and want more when you're done. So the best thing to do, I think, is to do intervals. And intervals is where you run a little bit and you walk a little bit. So pick a distance you can handle in the beginning. Start with a half mile or a mile. Run for 30 seconds and then walk for a minute. And then just change it up at whatever pace you want to do, until you feel comfortable that you can either increase your mileage, increase the running, and maybe less walking. A lot of runners that do marathons and half marathons, they do intervals all the time. They might run 3 minutes and walk for a minute or something like that. It does make it a little bit more enjoyable.
Thanks for sharing some of your trade secrets with us today, Jay. And thanks for tuning in, everybody. Remember, keep your eyes on the road and miles up.